the ultimate. Can't fuck with it. The ultimate.
This is Constant Elevation, the show for rising military and community leaders that isn't waiting for the future, we are defining the future. I'm your host, Gabriel Gabe Rockavilla, and you already know, can't stop, won't stop.
The ultimate.
3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? You are listening, you are watching the Constant Elevation podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Rock. Hope you guys are doing well on this rounding the end of August. Weather has turned a little bit nicer here in Maryland. It's still hot. It's an idea of you're not going to work out in the afternoon. If you do, you're making a potentially dangerous choice. I've shifted some of my workouts to the morning just because it's just a little bit more. You're still drenched from coming in from doing intervals or a long run or a sled push, but it's not as bad. Not as instead of having just having it surrounded by darkness versus having the hot sun just beating on you. So it is what it is. Hopefully, moving into September, I don't think it gets better. I don't remember it getting better in September here, but the weather is what it is, and we're just going to keep it moving forward. So. If you know me and my personality, and you've listened to the show for a while, you worked with me, you know what I tend to, I've been, what other phrases have been applied to me? All thrust, no vector, a very extroverted person, a very, can't stop, won't stop. Obviously, you know, I'm about that life. And so the idea of just keep on moving forward, and I want to just keep on that's the idea almost for constant elevation. Is the idea just to keep on moving forward? Obviously, learning from mistakes, maybe trying to take in as many inputs as you can, but you're not going to have paralysis analysis. You're actually going to make some decisions because, in my opinion, that's what officers and leaders are paid to do. We're paid to make decisions. Obviously, we surround ourselves with as much expert advice as we can, but in the end, we are charged with that responsibility, and we need to take it seriously. Again, that's what we're paid for. So as much as I'm about taking action and all that jazz, I'm also kind of, I don't know if you knew about me, but I try to be a very deliberate thinker. I try and find places so I can think slowly. And as I'm getting older, I find that I actually need more and more of this quiet time, very similar to last week's episode as far as my reflection time and release and reset. Those things are very important to me to make sure that I am taking in and trying to process information as much as I can and smartly as I can to make the correct decision that's required of me. So hold on a second. So I record my episodes hot in this basement, and it's just freaking hot. And so sweaty McSweatersons, whatever. I completed 2 workouts before I started recording this episode. That's beside the point. So the idea of thinking slowly, and you think about the idea, maybe you heard your older family member say, you have two eyes, 2 ears, but 1 mouth for a reason. You should be thinking and listening twice as much, and observing twice as much as you're speaking. And it kind of speaks, pun intended, it does speak a lot to, it has some wisdom of the fact that you should be really taking your time and figuring out what is that practice of you listening and thinking slowly. So that's what I want to talk about this week. I have several methods that I'll just share with you, and I think these are relevant, especially nowadays. Depending on your business, depending on what position you're at, you have to find your own thinking practice, and there's always time. Part is you have to make time as much as possible, and some of that's going to have to be on your personal time. And you have to prioritize all of those things with the rest of your personal responsibilities. But inevitably, you have to make the time. There's no excuse for this. You can make the time in order to try and think and listen slowly. So, one of the things I like to do is I need my quiet time, and I find there's pockets of space where I can actively think without being interrupted. One of them, as I mentioned earlier, is working out. So, especially if I'm going for a morning run, I do turn on, it's kind of weird. So when I go for morning runs, depending on what it doesn't depend on. A lot of times I'll just listen to podcasts. I know that's very, very boring, and it's not, but I find myself being able to, if I especially have intervals and I'm just kind of going through whatever my watch tells me to do, if I had planned rest or planned distance, I just do what my watch tells me. If I know I'm going for a distance run, I know where the distance is at, so I can turn my mind off of that, what my physical body is going through, and just kind of activate my mind. So I listen to podcasts to try and just think about alternate processes, alternate perspectives, just any kind of subjects. And I vary from comedy to fitness to health to current events. And so I just try and take in as much inputs as possible. But a lot of what happens is it just gets my brain thinking. And sometimes I will actively be listening to a podcast and then I'll hear something and it can be applied to work. And then I'll kind of zone out for the podcast and start thinking about work, or thinking about how I can be a better coach, or thinking about how I can be a better dad. And so those kind of places where, because my physical body is occupied doing something, and so I can do it doing running, sled pushes, any kind of workout, to be honest. And so I don't really care necessarily. I know some people are very particular about like having the right kind of music or having the right environment, whatever it is. I don't care about all that stuff. I just like the opportunity that I have to do some physical activity, whether or not I like it or not, especially if I'm doing like thrusters and pull-ups or something stupid that I don't want to do, or toe to bar like today. That idea of being able to shut your brain, your brain is occupied. No, your body is occupied. So therefore, your brain can kind of work. So I find myself actually utilizing that time very, very well, where I come up with ideas, I get inspired by something else, and then I kind of keep on going through my thought process, and then I just need to hurry up and come back home or figure out a way to write down my thoughts. That way it gets captured and I can finish off the rest of my thinking. And so a lot of times what happens is during my quiet times, my marinating and meditating time in the morning, doing my workouts in the afternoon, or just kind of relaxing in the evening, I'll wait until I go somewhere, usually at work, and then I'll have a quiet time where I can just whiteboard my entire thoughts. And if you know me, I'm a huge whiteboard person. I love drawing out processes and themes and just ideas. And I like the idea of having it because I can quickly erase it. I don't try and get into the digits and make a slide or a talking paper yet, because all my ideas are raw at that point in time, or they're just kind of non-organized. So then I take my information, I draw out all my stuff visually. I try to make sure the flow doesn't make sense, if I'm missing anything. And then the other portion that I like using this is I do the grade my homework technique, right? And so the fact that it's on my whiteboard in my office, I know depending on what subject I'm talking about, I'll grab somebody who has a vested interest in this subject, and then I will get their opinion about what I'm doing. I'll be like, hey, so come grade my homework. I do my sales pitch-ish. I kind of explain my thought process, and then I get their opinion. I'm like, am I actually on top? Am I on target here? Am I missing something? And then they either, concur with what I'm writing, maybe give some alternate perspective, maybe correct a couple things. There's no pride and ownership at that point. I want them to red team my thoughts, and then therefore the process or the project I'm working on only gets that much better. So, hold on a second. Like I said, it's freaking sweaty down here, and I don't care. I get to do what I want on my show, and I just get to keep on wiping sweat off my face. So as I keep on doing that, I just like the thinking, and I can go back. It can be there. I can kind of sit, stare at it, maybe get a snack, get a cup of coffee, whatever it is, and look at my ideas. And then once it's ready, I can actually translate it to whatever the final product is going to be, a talking paper for my boss or a presentation or whatever it is. The idea is you have to translate your ideas into something that can be easily communicated and received in a method that actually makes sense. And so today, for instance, I had to talk to the division as far as, so I take my job seriously, but I do not take myself seriously. And I think I covered this in a few seasons ago as far as how I used to approach some of my commanders' calls. So what happens is I have this idea and this project, and it was really just internal to our division. We're trying to figure out some better process efficiencies. Pretty standard for any team out there, where you have, if you imagine you have 4 work centers in a flight, and then all 4 flights contribute to the same mission, but then maybe there's some inefficiencies between the flights as far as how they're working together. And so I came up with this idea in this process. I'm like, hey, how I can overcome personalities and just make it focused on the process, right? And so the whole idea of teamwork. What I started thinking about was Voltron for some instance. The idea of each individual lion having their own powers, which work well, even when the lions themselves are on a mission. That works really, really well. But the ideal is when you form Voltron, and that end up becoming the most powerful instance of that team because they're all working in synchronization together, right? And so that idea, but there's phases. Individual lions working together, Voltron. All of those kind of things I'm trying to build, and so I built to this presentation with the attention step in the first part talking about the importance of Voltron and how I'm into any kind of series or movies where humans are piloting gigantic robots. So that was my attention step, and people, I was doing it virtually, so it's kind of odd when I don't see the audience in front of me, but I kept on going, and people understood that, like, here's the concept of the process. Then I actually went into familiar military nomenclature and the processes, assigned who's going to be the project lead, when I expect to have results by the end of September, all that jazz, but it's under the context of Voltron. So weirdly, I didn't think about that until I had my quiet time. I could actually sit and think and process, like, how am I going to try and sell this project without necessarily calling out anybody or getting somebody's emotions all tied up or whatever it is, because people would have gotten like that. I'm creating this objective process that focus on teamwork above else. And so maybe part of that is breaking this down to where it's not like the sky is falling kind of thing, but who doesn't like Voltron? Who doesn't like the idea of giant robots coming together and then taking on a bad guy? I love that kind of stuff. So therefore, I imagine there was a large number of people when I was doing the whiteboarding sessions and the pre-briefs with them. They all liked it. So deliver that process, and it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have just some external thoughts to kind of think about stuff going on in my life and understanding what is the best way for me to communicate to my team. So it's just kind of odd, but if I just would have kept on moving too fast, I would have skipped this opportunity to tailor this message, to tailor this important project that I know would be in the manner that my team would best receive it. I could have just said, process efficiency, go. Just do better and come back to me in 40 days with your recommendations. No, I don't want to do that. I want to have like a theme. And so, like I said, I take my job seriously, but not myself seriously. So that's one of the methods that I use. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't have slow thinking. So I think the final thing for this week, there's some other techniques that I probably can think of, and I'll bring them up. If you have any comments or questions, by all means, I'll share them with. If you're interested in seeing what I did for Project Voltron, I share those as well. But the idea is find some time out there. Find some time to think slowly. Have those times to kind of go through your thought processes on your own. Slowly bring in other people, your trusted advisors, to make sure, hey, so fact check, grade my homework. Am I on the right path? Am I doing this wrong? Could this be received wrong without you intentionally trying to do that? Because those good teammates will keep you out of trouble. And then finally, one of the final quotes I had was a Lil Wayne quote, "Real G's move in silence like lasagna." I'll say that again. Real G's, real gangsters move in silence like lasagna. You don't have to be loud and all that kind of stuff. Although I'm a very extroverted person, I don't have to be like that all the time. If you see me whiteboarding and I'm deep in thought, there's some good stuff going on. So just want to give you a different perspective how I think, and I think a lot of us would benefit from this technique. So if you want to try and see and really get into the core of what you're going to be and function as a good leader, take that time to think. Take that time to listen, learn slowly, and then move into action. Don't go into inaction. Don't go to the point where you're so slow you're not going to do anything and you get too scared. Make some decisions because that's what you're paid to do, but make sure you're thinking it slowly, the proper amount of time to come up with the best way to do it. All right, team, I'm going to go cool off because it's too damn hot here. I'll talk to you guys next week. Peace.